Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. We got an episode today. The topic is going from solopreneur to entrepreneur, but really the bigger conversation is going from business operator to business owner. If you're a longtime subscriber, listener to the show, you know I love this conversation. It is a passion topic of mine because I've been on both sides and I know which one is way more fun. So we're going to help you get to the business owner side today with an incredible guest, Jason Roberts. Before we dive in, Jason, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I absolutely love this conversation. I find that most people call themselves business owners, but very few find themselves there. So I'm curious to hear a little bit of your background because I'm passionate about the topic because I've been there. I've been the slave to my business. I saw how it destroyed my health, my finances, my family, everything. And I was fortunately able to cross that bridge and get to the other side. What's your story along that journey?
Man, it's super similar to what you just described, man. I mean, I won't give a ton of background because we don't have a ton of time, but you know, I grew up in a small farm town. I didn't have my mom and dad split when I was 12. I didn't have any entrepreneur mentors. I didn't have business in my family. I didn't go to college and get a degree. You know, I just really what motivated me probably more than anything is seeing my mom struggle, you know, seeing her trying to raise 3 boys without really much of an income. She's a nurse and she's a beautiful woman, but she did everything she could and sacrificed for us. So I think at a young age, I kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit. And the first job I got when I was 18 was at a collection agency. And it just, it paid well. All my buddies were at Mizzou getting a 4-year degree, and I'm making 70 grand a year at 18 years old, collecting delinquent Discover card bills, you know, which sounds great. But man, that job was a grind. And I think, you know, 80% of success in anything is psychological and 20% is mechanics. But that messes with your psychology every day when you're getting yelled at and cussed at and screamed at for 8 hours a day. The good thing though, is that it taught me to make 200 or 300 outbound calls a day, you know, and so you get over call reluctance and fear, those types of fears really, really quick. But a guy left. I mean, this is how crazy the story was. A guy left the collection agency that I worked at, and he got into the mortgage business, and he did really well, and he was making more than me, and he was helping people buy houses instead of collecting on, you know, delinquent credit card bills. And I thought, man, that'd be really cool. You know, I'd much rather help somebody buy a house than pester them about a bill that they owe. And so I called down to the state of Missouri. I got this big packet in the mail, and it was, you know, it was the licensing application for a mortgage company. Now this was 99, 2000. So the landscape was drastically different about, you know, what it took to get approved. You know, I needed 50 grand in cash and $1 million surety bond. And that was pretty much it. And for those that don't know, $1 million surety bond it costs a couple $1,000 with a 700 credit score. So the one thing that I didn't have to open a bank, to open a mortgage company, essentially a mortgage banker or broker, was 50 grand in cash. So I saved that money up. I opened up a spare bedroom in my condo, and we grew, man. We grew quick. You know, we went from, like I said, the spare bedroom in my condo to around 100 employees. We went from zero revenue to upwards of $20 million a year at our peak. We were the #1 rural housing lender in the state of Missouri. And I'm not saying, hey, look at me. I'm just telling the story of how crazy it was that happened, you know. And then one day, 2007 came, and I guess to kind of paint the accurate picture, you know, I was the guy that was at the office at 5:30 in the morning. I left at midnight, probably 6 or 7 days a week. I mean, for real, those were the real numbers. And you know, I missed birthdays, I missed holidays, I missed family functions. You know, every single day I told myself I'm going to go to the gym today, or I'm going to eat healthier, or I'm going to get in better shape. You know, and every day something came up that took precedence over that. The strange part was, though, if you were to ask me then, I would have told you that I loved it. You know, I thought that, man, perspective is a big thing, isn't it? Like you don't know what you don't know until you know it. Then you're like, damn, what have I been doing this whole time? But 2007 came, and, you know, we went from bringing millions of dollars a month in revenue into losing 100 grand a month over month. For 2.5 years, we bled around $100,000 a month until I had no money left. And I was in a place where I had to decide, you know, do I pay the office rent or do I pay my mortgage? and I chose to pay the office rent. There wasn't a job I was going to go get that was going to pay for my lifestyle that I, created by that point. And, I lost my own house to foreclosure, had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, kind of everything bad that could potentially happened in that time. And around that time, I had this mentor that came into me, and this was probably after we got back on our feet. That very next October 2010 is when I filed bankruptcy. In 2011, we started a new business, still in the real estate, scaled it up really well. And basically I cloned the second business that I made was pretty much a clone of the mortgage company, different type of business. But I was back at the office at 5:30 in the morning, working till, you know what I mean? And yeah, I had money again, like financially, everything got better. And I had this mentor come in, and he said, Jason, you think you're special, don't you? And I'm like, he was kind of being an ass. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you're really good at business, and you scale businesses quickly, and you're good at making money and building teams and doing all those things. But look at everything that you're sacrificing. Like, look at everything that you claim matters to you that you're neglecting. And like he was really getting in my business. And he said, I don't think you're anybody special at all. I know all kinds of guys that sacrifice everything that really matters to make millions of dollars, and they're miserable, and they have no life, and they have no sense of self-worth, all these things. And I mean, he was just hammering on me, and he said, what I would think would be really impressive is if you could change more lives, if you could make more money, if you could grow more business in 3 or 4 hours a day instead of 15 hours a day. Now that would be impressive. What you're doing is not impressive. I know all kinds of people like you. And I was kind of like, go to hell, man. It was like a real aggressive, like hitting me. But man, it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed to hear. And that for the first time in my life, I guess I had just associated since the time I was a kid. I was indoctrinated with your job as a man is to work and provide. And I still agree with that, but I associated work and provide to hours per day, not necessarily the result. You know what I mean? And so I was just down this path of grind. And then if I work really, really hard right now, someday I can have this great life. And man, we can't predict when someday comes. What if I could just plan to have a great life today? What if I could build my businesses bigger with less time? And that was the first step towards my transition from, you could have said I was a business owner. You could have said I was an entrepreneur with 100 employees, but was I? I mean, I was a slave to my business. I had a 80, 90 hour a week job, like it was the whole reason I opened the company was to have freedom. And I had less freedom than I had when I worked in corporate America,
Yeah, it's the business, it's the entrepreneurship paradox. And I hear about it all the time. And people think working harder means they're more successful. It's this badge of honor. And, full disclosure, just like you, I used to be there. I used to brag about how many hours I worked. The 80 hours a week work was like, look at me go. Look at that ego. Terrible, terrible place to be. But what you said there is so true. We start our businesses because we want freedom, whatever that is. If it's financial freedom, if we want time freedom sure. from a job, a boss, a time clock, whatever. And rarely do we get that as business owners, and rarely do we actually become what a true business owner is. In a way that I like to talk about it with our clients and potential clients is, if you invest in the stock market and you buy, let's just say Ford or Coca-Cola, you are technically, and this is quite a stretch, but you are technically a business owner, right? Yeah. If you don't have that same level of freedom with your business, you're not really a business owner. That really pisses people off. How does that resonate with you?
Man, no, I mean, it sounds completely true now. I would have argued to death with you 15 years ago. I would have said that isn't true. But I had a mentor say something that the strongest force in the whole human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. And I think that just speaks to your point right there of like, we have this identity around what we think we are and how we define it. And anything that threatens that, man, we'll just block it off with everything possible. If I hadn't got wiped out, I don't, what I mean? Lost everything. I don't know that I would have ever absorbed that message, man. I don't know that I would have ever really absorbed what you just said, because I had, my identity was so tied to, this is who I am. I work 80 hours a week and this is what it takes to be successful. And if you're not doing this, you're never going to make, that was my belief set. And so I behaved from that,
Yeah, it's powerful to shift your identity. So I'm curious, when going from that to building the second company that was really no different in terms of how hard and how much you're working, into building multiple businesses after that, and to get here today. What did you realize had to change, and how did you go about actually changing it? Because it's one thing to say like, oh, I just worked less and delegated. Not a good message. Please don't say that, because there was definitely more in between there. So what exactly did you do?
Like everybody, I think I had this fear of like, I had to hover over the top of it or it was just going to disintegrate. Like I had awesome people on my team, but I didn't empower any of them, like every single thing had to run through me. And I created this like dependency environment. And again, like I had another really good mentor that came to my office one day, and he was sitting there, during like a coaching session, and we probably got interrupted like 20 times. By somebody opening the door. Hey, Jason, this just came up. What should I do? Hey, Jason, this just came up. And he goes, you know what I want you to do? The next time somebody walks in here and asks that, I want you to just simply respond with, what do you think you should do? And see what happens. And then reaffirm them. And Julie came in, a few minutes later, and she interrupted and asked a question. I go, well, what do you think you should do? And she just like had this crazy like never in their life did they have the ability to make a decision for themselves. And they were totally capable of making decisions. And I know that's like a small tweak or a small shift, but once I started, and then like it happened a couple more times during that coaching session. And then the third time she opened the door and goes, never mind, and closed the door. And this happened in real time. And I was like, oh my God, for 12 years, I've been training dependency instead of training leadership. I thought I was training leadership. I thought I was leading by example. I thought being the first one there and the last one to leave and helping out and doing all these things was a good thing. And some of that is good, but I think I was doing detriment, I was doing harm at the same time. And that like, if you're going to, and to think that you're good at all things, like we all have our own unique genius zone, right? We all have something that we're like inborn, probably really, really good at. And in corporate America, we just did the one thing that we were really, really good at. And then we go into entrepreneurship and start our own business. Now we got to do the thing that we're good at, but now we got to do the 27 other hats. We've got to be accounting and payroll and sales and marketing and all these different things. And we're probably a C player at best in a lot of those other areas. And, if you got a team of C players in 1A, you're probably never going to win a championship. You're probably never going to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. And that's kind of what I realized in my own businesses and like helping other people with their businesses is that like we as the owner, entrepreneur are the stranglehold to the growth and all of our own organizations. Like we are what's holding our own growth back. Like we're the bottleneck. And if we can identify what we're really good at and we can identify what we're not good at and build a team around those things and empower our people and lead, then things can start to mesh, things can start to gel, things can start to grow and scale. It's the craziest thing, but every time I pull an entrepreneur back from their business, the business grows, it makes more money. The more they're in it, it's limited. It's so opposite. It feels so crazy. And every single business owner that I work, they all say the same thing. Well, you don't know my business. I'm a doctor. You don't know the medical world. It's different. My patients are only ever going to trust me. Like, again, we're so controlled by these beliefs that we get stuck where we're at sometimes.
Yeah. Does your business accept monetary payment in exchange for a product or service? I know your business. It's all the same.
Yeah, that's right.
You are in the way.
Yep. They're all the same.
Yeah. So tell me then, you realized that in that meeting, you had this aha moment, and then you have to do something about it. You have to continue training the positive behavior. What did that path look like? And then ultimately it sounded like you were still working the 70, 80, 90 hours a week at that point. How long was it for that transition to where you could be more of the owner than the operator?
After that meeting, I went home that night and the guy said, I want you to write a vision for what you want your life to look like. I want you to write a vision for what you want your business to look like. And that sounded like woo-woo to me and kind of like, okay, I'm going to go write this vision and things are going to get better. But it was kind of like the first time ever that I identified things like I wanted to be geographically free. That was something that was in my personal vision. I don't want to be chained to St. Louis. I don't want to have to, you know what I mean? I want to have the freedom to move around and do. And so like, as I started going down this path, I'm like, oh my God, if I look at what I want things to look like, and I look at how they do look, they're polar opposite. No wonder like I don't feel fulfilled. It's not that I didn't love what I was doing, but it just felt in conflict. And within a couple of days, I went in and I got rid of probably 70% of my staff, 80% of my staff, and just kind of regrew from the beginning, because I wanted a business that served me instead of me serving it. You know, I was just chained to that thing. And my thought, you know, we were at that point, the business was real estate investing, and we were flipping 10, 15 houses a month, rehabbing. We had all these crews and all these sales, and, you know, 4 or 5 salespeople. I had, you know, 5 or 6 support people. You know, it wasn't huge, but it was 20, 30 employees. And my thought was, like, if we could just do 1 or 2 houses a month, I didn't need all that. And I could regrow it and rebuild it the right way. And so I went in the next day, and I let go probably, like I said, 70, 80% of our people. I got every single one of them a job somewhere else. I know people in the, you know what I mean? I didn't like throw them out the door, because they're like family to me. Like, you know, like the last thing on, like, I just associated so much pain to, like, these, when you spend 80 hours a week at work, they are your family. You know, you see them more than you see your own family. And so that was a struggle for me, but it was the best thing that ever happened. And kind of starting back with a smarter team and doing it the right way. Another thing that was really important for me is, like, looking at, here's the 500 things that need to get done to get this business from inception to revenue. And here's the 2 or 3 that I'm really good at. So I've got to figure out a way that the other 478 things get done. I'll do what's in my genius zone and that only, and let's build a team around that. So that was kind of the start of, like, really being an entrepreneur. And then it got to the point where I found myself not even loving the job that I was doing on the assembly line. And that was when it further kind of transitioned to, like, my job is to work on the business, not in it. And if I'm in it, then it's really not a business. Even if that is a minimal amount of time, the business is still dependent on me in some fashion to operate. And so that whole progression is what really, like, step by step took me from being in it 24/7 to working on it. And once I started working on it and got myself out of the way, it just changed. Like, it was like putting on a new pair of glasses and you could see the world for the first time. Like, it now made sense to me. And every other business that we start, like, people think it's a destination. Like, once I get here, then I'll pull myself out. Then I'll hire people. Then I'll build, you know, once I have this certain level of success or certain level of revenue or whatever. What I learned from that is, you do that from the very beginning. You set it up right from the very beginning, and you won't have to tear it down and rebuild it 5 years from now. And you can do it the right way from the beginning. And so every business that I started since then, my focus first was, like, on what is the team and who's going to do what and who's going to be an A player in this lane, as opposed to, let me give myself every job and see if it works or not. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, when you're working with your clients now that you've done this several times, you went through your own journey and you've helped other people do it. What are some common things that you see business owners or entrepreneurs focused on that they really have no business doing? And what are they neglecting that they really should be? And I let's just put this little asterisk next to it, saying, I understand every human being is different. We all have different skills. I get that. But in general, like, what are we missing to go from operator to owner?
Well, one of the biggest things, I think, is just, like, being honest with yourself. And what I mean by this is, like, a lot of successful business owners, you know, multi-million-dollar companies that I work with, when they first come in, I ask the owner, how much of your week do you feel like you're spending doing the thing that you're brilliant at? And how much of your week are you spending doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing? And the answer that I get is the same every time. It's 80%, probably 80 to 90% of my time I'm spent doing the things I should be doing. Probably 10 to 20, like, that's not the problem, Jason. 10 to 20% doing things that I shouldn't be doing. 80% of my time I'm in my genius zone. And so I give them this stupid little document. It's like a work log, and I have them track it throughout the week. Of anytime they change a task, they have to write down the time, and so if you got to the office at 8 o'clock and you got into your email, you put 8 o'clock email, and you don't have to do another journal entry. This is so elementary, but it's so crazy. I encourage everyone to do this if you've never done it before. And then at 8:05, if you take a phone call, then you document 8:05 phone call. But if nothing changed, you don't have to document until something changes. And I want you to do that for a week. And every single time at the end of the week, the phone call, and they're like, they all answer the phone kind of with an, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, bad, huh? And I said, so tell me what it really is. What it really normally is 80% of the time spent doing $10 an hour stuff or whatever that they shouldn't be doing. And 10 10 or 20% of the time doing the things that a real entrepreneur business owner should be doing. And these are super successful, like from the outside looking in, successful companies. And so if they're doing it, new people are doing, we're all doing it in some capacity. But that has the most like jolting shift when I'm working with somebody in the beginning of like convincing, because they figured it out on their own. Instead of me telling them what they need to do differently, they saw it with their own eyes and they're like, oh my God, this makes sense. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction. It's just, and because we already think we understand what we're doing. And so we have the beliefs about what the problem is and what the problem's not. But if you're spending 80% of your work week doing things that aren't in your skill set and aren't your genius zone and aren't moving the needle enough, then we need to make some changes pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a good tip. And it's people get a little scared when they look at the facts rather than just how you feel you're doing versus the facts of what you're actually doing. That's always a fun exercise. I love this conversation. Where can the listener go to continue the conversation and learn a little bit more about what you got going on?
Sure, man. My website's www.jasonroberts.tv. I have a free giveaway that I wanted to give to you guys. It's at www.ultimatesuccessblueprint.com. Thank you for throwing that up on the screen. It's a 16-week training that I do that we condense down into about 3 hours. And it's really a in-depth how to reprogram your subconscious. And I don't mean to be woo-woo about it. I just mean that every single business owner that I take on, the reason why they're where they're at and the reason why they're struggling to get where they're trying to get is because there's some sort of belief, some sort of identity that they're aligning with. That's keeping, like, nobody fails to lose the 20 pounds that they want to lose because they don't know how to do it. We all know that, how to be at a calorie deficit. We all know how to exercise. We all know how to lose the 20 pounds, but we don't, because we're identifying more with the person that we're seeing in the mirror than the person that's 20 pounds skinnier. And one of the things I do with entrepreneurs is if I can help them identify the belief system and structure of the version of themselves that has the multi-million-dollar business where they're only working 10 hours a week in it, if they start to align, I can start to make changes significantly faster. So I condensed that down to about 3 hours. It's $1,000 on our website. It's free for anybody that's listening today. Just go to ultimatesuccessblueprint.com, put in the coupon code HARMONIOUS, and it brings the total to zero. It's totally free.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. You did not share that with me before the episode, so I really appreciate that gift for our listeners. You're kind of dumb if you don't take advantage of that. I'm just going to speak the truth here. So wherever you're watching and listening, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you go check that out. Now, Jason, I love to end these episodes with a question. We talked about a lot. You shared a lot. It's easy for people to just go one ear out the other. And I really want people to walk away with from this episode with something they can do and actually change in their life. You've given us that here. I really hope you take advantage of that. But I also believe that powerful questions get powerful answers.
Totally agree.
Rather than just telling somebody all of this stuff, let's bring it to them specifically. What is a powerful question the listener can ask themselves until they get that powerful answer about making that journey from entrepreneur, solopreneur to business owner? What do you want them to ask themselves?
Man, I mean, the first thing that I think about is the question that my mentor asked me when I made my biggest shift. And that was, how can you change more lives, increase revenue, grow your business in 3 hours a day instead of 15 hours a day? Now, that would be impressive. That's what he said to me. And so the question that started repeating in my head is, how can I, how we get more done the day before we go on vacation than we did the last 2 or 3 weeks? That's what starts when you only have 3 hours a day, because your business goals are the same. Like, that doesn't change, right? You still have your aspirations of where you want to go. But when you've got 3 hours to figure it out, as opposed to 15, you start asking different questions, you start getting different answers. And so one of the things that I would say is, I mean, you nailed it. Ask better questions. How can I grow my business? How can I be more profitable? How can I scale it bigger? How can I help more clients? How can I make a bigger difference in 2 or 3 hours a day instead of 15? I just think that will start the shift of solopreneur to entrepreneur and making different decisions.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you talk about shifting your identity. It's so powerful when you make those statements like, I am a business owner. You start to identify with that and act a certain way. So definitely go check out the ultimatesuccessblueprint.com and start to shift that identity so you can become a true business owner and get out of the box you find yourselves in. Jason, thank you so much for being here today. This was fantastic.
This is awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
For those of you watching and listening, I already told you, make sure you subscribe. We want to continue to help you grow your business 5 days a week. We love bringing you these episodes. Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to Harmonious at Lunch.